Welcome to the Stroke Buddies Stroke Survivor Support Group meeting. Whether you're here in person or watching later on YouTube, we welcome you to be a part of these. If you have any subject matter that you would like to see discussed, there are a couple of ways that you can do that. One, you can join us and bring it up. I realize that not everybody wants to be on camera or talk. So the other way is that you could post it on the meeting announcements, what kinds of things you'd like to see. And also I will put up another, I did it once, but I'll put up another call for content. And on the subject of not having to appear on camera, you can come to these meetings and listen to them live if you want, and you don't have to appear on camera, and you don't have to say anything. So, with that, I think what we'll do is we'll quickly go around the room and introduce ourselves and just say what kind of stroke we had, how far out we are, maybe what our biggest challenge is, and maybe something about any recent successes that we've had. So I'll start, and my name is Ralph Preston. I run Stroke Buddies. I'm doing these meetings in association with Lauren, who will introduce herself in a second. She's with Med Rhythms. And I am a stroke survivor of 13 years. I had a right side hemorrhagic stroke. I made a pretty good recovery. And for the last 10 years, I've been trying to help other stroke survivors with their recovery. And that's why I'm here. Okay, so who would like to be next? Go ahead.
I'm Joe. I had two ischemic strokes in July. I had one TIA back in 2017. My thing here is to get rid of the isolation of the pandemic and aphasia and stroke. Sometimes I just be quiet and listen. Sometimes I don't. It's good to know that everybody's here for each other. Thank you.
Okay, welcome, Trish. You want to be next and introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about your stroke, when you had it, and what your biggest challenge is, and maybe any recent successes that you've had.
My name is Trish, and I had my stroke 3/3/18, 3.5 years ago about. And they told me I'd never walk again, and I walk 3 miles a day, so I don't know.
That's a big success.
Yeah.
What's your biggest challenge at this point?
Right now, I'm working on bending my knee, because last time you said I had a hip tip, you told me I had. So I'm trying the Y, which last year, everybody, when I moved up here, everybody kept telling me, oh, you'll get in the Y free. And I called up there and they said no. And then I went in there the other day and they're like, oh, you get a free membership. So I joined the Y. So now I'm really working on getting my knee bending so I don't have that hip dip. Okay. I'm trying to get this hand moving too, but.
Well, we all have challenges. Kelly, are you willing to tell us a little bit about yourself and your stroke and your challenges and successes?
I'm Kelly up in Canada. But 3.5 years ago, I had an ischemic stroke from a procedure for an aneurysm complication. And they called it a mini stroke, but here I am fighting each day to get better. I'm happy I can walk, use my hands again. It affected my left side. I found fatigue was the worst part once I was walking and moving again. I guess I was doing that before I left the rehab place in Toronto. What other questions?
Any recent successes?
No, I'm still working on my hips. Something happens to them ever since the stroke, and there's weakness. So I'm just trying to keep the strength up. Do a
We,
little bit every day.
I think most of us, anyone with gait issues, fights that hip weakness. Trish called it her knee won't bend. It's upper leg strength, core strength, and hip strength that keep your knee from bending and cause that little hip dippy thing. Um, Winnie, how about you? Will you tell us a little bit about your stroke and your biggest challenges and your successes?
Sure. I had a ischemic stroke in 2018. So I'm now 2.5 years post-stroke. And my successes are my fingers are moving in and out. I walk every day for about half a mile. My leg is pretty much okay, but still with the toe drop, I'm working on that as well. And my shoulder is getting better than when I first started with sublux. It's more closed in now, so I'm still working on that, and I'm so happy that it's closing.
Great. Joe, you're up.
Well, my name is Joe McCullough. I live about 100 miles east of Chicago. March 16th, 2016, I suffered hemorrhagic stroke in my cerebellum. Took about a 12-hour surgery to stop the bleeding. Spent 40 days in a coma and 13 months in a nursing home with all kinds of terrible things. But my stroke is unique because it's a cerebellum stroke. So I suffer mainly vertigo. And I have vertigo all the time. And we're talking about eyes and such. My eyes don't perform together. If I close one eye and look from one side to the next, I can focus. But if I have both of them open, it takes a couple seconds for it to focus. So, but I have a pretty good life. I work a lot on my home and my yard and have a great network of friends, and I've recovered pretty well. My longest walk to date is 12 miles. And I don't walk every day anymore. But I do work in the yard every day. I planted a 45-foot by 45-foot stroke survivor prayer garden. Sort of proud of that. And I've also gardened vegetables and sort of converted my home. And pretty happy with the way things come out. Can't drive, but that's okay. I got plenty of friends to drive me, so I get chauffeured any place I want to go. So blessed to be here.
I'll try and remember, this is an aside, but you mentioned your eyes. I have an eye exercise video that's specifically works all your cranial nerves for your eyes. There are 5 of them. And it, with one of the survivors that I did it with, it really got her eyes tracking the same. Her eyes didn't work together. It's very simple. It's safe. I'll message it to you. And so let's go to Dennis, and then we'll hear from Lauren. So Dennis, you're up.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dennis Falvey, and I live in the New York City area. And I had a stroke in November of 2017, so I'm about 3.5 years out. I had a ischemic stroke that affected my left side. My biggest challenge is, actually, I have 2 of them. I'm going to cheat and throw 2 out there. One is, I'm in chronic pain 24/7 due to muscle atrophy in my shoulder, my left arm, my affected arm, and my left pec muscle. And the other challenge that I wrestle with is the mental anguish that I'm sure to some extent we all deal with. My biggest win, and it wasn't necessarily this week, but just like I think it was Trish that said, you know, my doctors told me I would likely never walk again. But 3 weeks ago, I walked my only daughter down the aisle at her wedding, and it was the most important 22 feet I've ever walked. And that was one of my strongest motivations to get out of that damn wheelchair years ago. So that was a big win, and just being there and being alive to be there and be able to walk her down the aisle, you know, biggest win I've had thus far with this recovery. And I'm
Awesome.
excited to be here because, you know, for me, nobody gave me a manual when I left the hospital and says, here's what you're going to need to expect and here's what you can anticipate. So I view this group and the other Facebook groups that I participate in as an opportunity for everyone to share their experiences, strength, and hopes to help each other, because you know there is no other place to get information. I don't get it from anywhere else. So that's what I hope to get from this. You know, I'm looking for that manual on how this all works, and I'm counting on each of you to fill in the pages. Thank you.
Okay, Lauren, you're up.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Steitel. I work at MedRhythms. As Ralph mentioned, we're a medical device startup, and we're building devices that use prescription music to help people improve their walking function after they've had a stroke or another neurologic incident. As I mentioned in the past, we are getting closer to having a product on the market, which is very exciting. And we have a usability study right now that allows stroke survivors to essentially beta test our product, and they can do it in a way that's completely free of all charges and in the comfort of their own homes. So if anybody is interested, we've had a number of people sign up for that, which is great. And we're really excited to have more of the Stroke Buddies community involved. And again, that's targeting, the device is targeting walking function. So I can drop a link with more information. There's some criteria. And I'm also here because, as Ralph mentioned, we're kind of forging this partnership. We're in the early phases of developing this partnership with Stroke Buddies, essentially in the hopes of better understanding the needs of stroke survivors and this community that, you know, Ralph's essentially been managing through his platform, and it's been growing every day, and trying to figure out, you know, how can we better serve those needs of stroke survivors and provide them with the information and opportunities provided.
Okay, well, I made a post on that trials, and what I'll do is after this meeting, I'll make it a notification so it stays on top for the next few days, and then I'll switch it back to these meetings. That way, maybe we can sign up some more people. I also posted it in another group, but that's, I asked Sarah about that, and so I posted it in Young Stroke Survivors as well.
And I'll also just say, you know, I think Dennis just, you know, put it better than I ever could. You know, the value of having this connection and community. I myself am not a stroke survivor, so I just try to like soak up all the information so that we can better serve stroke survivors. So I'm pretty quiet during these meetings, but I also am always, you know, I am a talker. I'm happy to talk, you know, offline or here if anybody ever does have any questions. But, you know, I think that, as Dennis said, like this is an opportunity for stroke survivors to connect. So I try to be more of a fly on the wall and approach this from like the learning angle. But I also am always happy to, you know, I always drop my contact info in, and if you want to talk one-on-one or have any questions about MedRhythms or music in recovery, I'm always happy to chat more.
Good. One thing before, there were two things I thought about talking about. One is programs for the meetings, and the other is, if we get to it, mentoring. But as a part of those conversations I had with Dennis, we were talking, and his concept of the manual. I mean, that's basically was my concept after I had my stroke. I wanted to put it on DVD because I'm a video guy, but it was basically a video manual. Joe just texted some messages saying, we could put the manual on video. It doesn't matter whether it's on, it seems like some of it needs to be on a website, some of it could be on video, it'd be appropriate to different things. But one of the things that Dennis and I were talking about was, and I realized it kind of clicked when we were talking that this is what I've been headed for all along, and that is that most of the websites and most of the information out there is coming from the clinical or medical side of things. There's no real platform for us. We invent a lot of things, we discover a lot of things, we have reactions to things like when you get your product out. There'd be a whole bunch of people who could, give you good feedback or give other stroke survivors feedback on how they best use the Mid Rhythms app and what it did for them. So, since Dennis and I have talked, I guess I've kind of adapted my mission here, and I think or maybe we sort of defined it in those conversations, and that is that, in any partnerships or anything, I guess what I'm looking to do is create a platform from the stroke survivor point of view. And, how do we attract 700,000 people who have their first stroke and every year, and 6 million people that are out there? I don't know, but it needs to reach as many people as it can, and I think that that we all have something to offer that the medical community can't, particularly to other survivors. That's what Dennis was hitting on, and that you liked, Lauren, the fact that it would be a community. How do you build a community of 6 million people? I don't know, but I'll give it a try. So, anyway, there's our introductions and everything. One of the things I wanted to talk about, again, Dennis and I talked about this, and I've mentioned it since the beginning, was I think that these meetings would be better off if they had content. We can talk, we can introduce ourselves, we can go down side roads and stuff, but I've felt all along that they would be better if we kind of had a subject that we were sticking to, something that could get announced in advance, so you could say, next week's meeting is on shoulder or spasticity or attitude or whatever we're talking about. I have been ridiculously busy the last couple of months, and I'm finding it hard to do all the things that I do, and on top of that, come up with all the programming. So one of the ideas that we had, Dennis and I talked about, was are there any of us here that would be willing to either take on a meeting or help me with a meeting or help somebody else with a meeting that they were interested in to kind of spread the load? I'll work as hard as I can on everything. It's not a matter of just taking the load off me. I think that if we had other people involved, we're going to get other perspectives other than mine. And I think that's a good thing. I can only look at this whole thing through my stroke and my experience, just like the rest of you. So if Dennis is willing to take on a program, then he could pick the subject, something that was critical in his recovery, something he was interested in, something that came across his desk, and it would provide a lot more variety. I also think that I don't know how to get people to tell us what they want, but I think I could step up the effort to see what we can do to find out what kinds of things people would like to have us do programs on.
I can
Yeah,
help
Ralph,
too. I
if
would
I
like to
may
help.
respond to
This
what you
way?
just said, if I may respond to what you just said,
Yeah, I'm
you
done.
know, if Ralph was to take like every third meeting, that just means that we need some of us to fill in. I will gladly do a meeting, Ralph. So you just let us know ahead of time.
Well, yeah, what we need to, what we're trying to do here is, see if there's some willingness and, come up with a plan, some kind of structure. I'm going to end up being slightly involved in everything because I'm the scheduler and the group owner, and I got to put up the notifications and make the posts to say, what do you want? And all
Of
that.
course.
And I'm happy to do that. Like I said, I've had a hard time taking this on top of everything else, and I'm not interested in getting out. I think from under the work. But one of the things that I mentioned that's real important would be a variety of perspective. So Trish, you started talking. I saw you nodding your head. So go ahead.
I would help. I would like to help.
Okay.
Whatever I can do. Now, I'm not real computer literate, so that's the only problem. But I mean, I can manage most stuff,
Well, I mean, if you take on, I'm just thinking out loud here. If say Dennis took on a meeting, then he would have to do like a little bit of research, a little bit of planning, might try and invite somebody who, one of the other things I've thought about for content would be to get experts. I mean, I'd still love to get PTs, OTs, neurologists, and some of those folks through here somehow, so that we can ask them questions. I was going to say grill them, but we don't want them to think that we're going to grill them. To that end, I've talked with Lauren a few months ago about the possibility, when we were first talking about these doing programs, of having somebody from Med Rhythms do one, have her do one, and have a guest from her company. And I brought that up again so that I wouldn't be springing that on her in this meeting. And she remembered and kindly said, oh, sure. And I told her that, while we're interested in the app, we're also, everybody as stroke survivors, our perspective would be, how does this work? What can it do for us? That kind of thing. And that would play into their app. I just think if we have experts, that they ought to be kind of talking to what we see our mission as opposed to what they see their mission as. That's all. So
Agreed.
I would like to volunteer to do a meeting. I'd like to do a meeting based upon ants.
Based on what?
Ants. We've talked about ants.
Okay.
Automatic negative thoughts.
Okay.
And I would like to do a meeting. I'll try to get something written by Dr. Amen, who's coined the phrase ants. And I'd like to try to put something posted up on the screen so we can all read it as I read it. And we can start off a discussion based upon these automatic negative thoughts. I'll also try to send to you, and I think I already did, a little blurb that I wrote about ants, and maybe we could send it to everybody here going to be in the meeting so we can all see it several days before, and we can think about it and develop our ideas of what we'd like to say about these automatic negative thoughts. And then we'd end up with a panel discussion that could be recorded, and then other people could tune into it and say, oh, wow, yeah, I have these automatic thoughts. I need to get rid of them. And that could just be a kickoff on what a meeting can be, and why I think it'd be really beneficial, not only beneficial for us to talk about, but beneficial for other stroke patients to see other people talking about what they've had to deal with.
Well, and that's, that's what I'd like in the end. I don't think we're going to get, and neither do I want 100 people to
You
manage
can't have, no.
in these meetings, but it would be really good to have like, kind of concise program on a particular subject and be able to put, stroke buddies support meeting numbers 14,
Yeah.
negative thoughts. And so you could go along and because right now I haven't, well, we've talked on a number of subjects, so we don't have that focus. And so they just all say, number 6, number 7, number 8. How do you know what to watch? Unless you're interested
Right.
in all of them and you don't have, and you got all the time in the world, which most people don't, then, you're going to skip it all because you're not quite sure what it is. So I'd love to have these kind of, more concise and more content oriented so that, because I think in the long run, it's really more about, you we get about 70 or 80 hits on YouTube. It'd be great if we got 7 or 800 or 7 or 8,000. It's because that's how you're going to reach people. We can't have 7,000 people in this meeting. 70 would be a mess. So
Maybe if we all, everybody that wants to help, get together and have a meeting and discuss
right,
and make up, like
that
you're
was
saying,
yeah, that was my idea. Not one of these like a side meeting. The other thing is, over the years, I've had a number of people offer to help with various things. And so I think one thing that might be beneficial would be to put out a post in the groups about if you're interested in helping us with this, mission. You don't have to come to the meeting. You don't have to be on camera. You don't have to host it. You could you could work with Dennis to help him do some research on whatever subject he
yeah,
does. And like Trish, you wouldn't have to necessarily take one on if you wanted to help somebody else. If you don't see yourself as, running a meeting, that's fine. There's always something that somebody can do. I mean, that's, that's kind of was one of the things about starting this was the whole stroke buddies concept because it can be as simple as going and visiting with a stroke survivor. I do physical therapy with them. Not everybody's capable of doing that, but I've also set 3 people up with the Library of Congress automatic digital book system. That's really simple. It's something that you can do, and once you've done it once, it's easy to repeat. That makes a big difference for people having books come in the mail that they can listen to. I mean, there are a million things, and we're back to Dennis's whole thing about the groups and the camaraderie and feeling like you're not alone.
Right.
So, go ahead, Dennis.
No, no. So I heard 3 people willing to take a meeting.
I
Joe,
got 4.
myself, and Tris.
Right. Well, we got 4
So
or 5. We got Trish, you, Joe, Lauren, and me.
Lauren, okay, so right there is a month.
Right. And that would give us a lot of time in terms of like maybe trying to recruit some other people or me. I have a local OT who I'd love to get, and I've been going to physical therapy and I look for him every time. I haven't seen him. I asked him about him yesterday. He's still there. I'm going to email him because I really think that there would be some good content if we had some medical experts, but then we got to ask them questions that we were interested in instead of them. Basically, they generally just disseminate information to us based on a lot of times standard answers and standard practices.
Yeah, Ralph, I had a question for people
Sure.
about that. If Medrhythms, say one of our clinicians came in and gave a presentation about music therapy and the the scope of the treatment. Do you think it would be valuable to have, and I'm asking everybody on the call, do you all think that there would be some value in maybe having a individual who can kind of speak from the perspective of like the patient in that context, somebody who's gone through music therapy themselves,
Yeah.
Yes,
kind of speak to their experience,
Yeah.
not just the
Yeah.
clinician?
Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody who's walked down the hall backwards playing a guitar as opposed to somebody who sits at a computer all day and codes.
Yeah, I feel like because we could definitely get somebody who does the the hands-on in person neurologic music therapy come on and speak, but I'm wondering if it would be even more elevated if we could have that like the voice of the patient too, because I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that's really like lacking
definitely.
in conversation. Okay,
Oh.
great.
Okay, I guess I misunderstood that the first time. So you're talking about maybe bringing a patient, somebody who's experienced music therapy as a second guest?
That's what I was thinking.
Well, that would be stupendous.
Yeah, I know there are even Stroke Buddies members who have either tried our music therapy app or they've tried music therapy in person before. And I bet that we could, if we give someone that opportunity to be involved and kind of like give their testimonial or not even a testimonial, but just kind of like an overview of their experience, I bet some people might be interested in doing that.
Here's the thing, Lauren. Other stroke survivors have so much more credibility with stroke survivors. We don't. It's not we don't believe the medical community or anything, but there's just a lot more trust in somebody else who's been through it all.
Right.
We don't feel like they don't work for a company, they're not selling anything, and whatever. And as you were talking, I was thinking we could, maybe we could get some reps from some other companies, but if we were going to get somebody from a company, I would want them to talk about splints and splinting and not concentrate on the splint that they sell. I mean, of course, that's where your knowledge is going to come from, and of course, that would, be an incentive to appear on the show and pass on some expertise. But I really think that stroke survivors want the expert, want to know what it's basically. We all want to know what's it going to do for me.
Right.
You know.
And I
Sure.
I feel like that approach, if it's one that it could be valuable, which it sounds like you guys think it might be, having the stroke survivor voice represented in equal measure alongside the clinician voice. I feel like that could be replicated with other experts too. Like if we had an expert come in to speak about fatigue, or an expert come in to speak about working as a speech language pathologist, like it can be replicated in so many different contexts, and there are so many individuals out there who are stroke survivors who've experienced that treatment. And like you said, I think it might lend more credibility to the clinician and what they're saying, and it also might just provide a more like well-rounded perspective.
No, I think it's a great idea adding in like the survivors, because what are we talking about? We're talking about trying to build a bigger platform for the stroke survivors side of things. So,
Right.
um,
And all these individuals are treating the whole person, but they're best at speaking to, as a clinician, they're best at speaking to like the science behind it. But ultimately, there's also the very human aspect of receiving treatment. And I think probably, a lot of stroke survivors would see that as valuable to like have some people who've actually experienced it themselves come on and talk about it.
I don't know why I picked on splinting, but if you got an expert on splinting, they could actually, maybe they could get one of their patients or somebody they work with and actually, make a splint for them, or go over it. And then actually it'd be better to have somebody who already had gone through the splinting process, because then they could talk about the how it benefited them, or what the issues were. You know, it took me a long time till I could wear it long enough in the daytime that I could sleep through the night, and you know, that kind of thing. Whatever the issues are, I don't want to go too far down any particular rabbit hole, but I love the idea of not only having an expert, but maybe having, you know, one of their patients or a stroke survivor who's, you know, gone through it. The other thing we should do is, you know, then promote it. You know, say we have something on music therapy. Anybody who has any experience with music therapy personally, please come join us and tell us. You know, anybody who has any experience with splinting and how it worked for them. We're having a meeting on such and such a date on splinting. Please come, you know, share your experience with other stroke survivors. So it sounds like we're on to something. We're semi in agreement, or pretty much in agreement. I shouldn't say semi. And we've got some willingness to take on some of the load, to share the load. And I think that, like, for the third time, that just brings in a lot of different perspectives. Another thing would be to try and get people in the groups to tell us what they'd like, and then we could, once they tell us what they like, you know, Dennis could say, nah, I'm not interested in that, and Trish could say, oh, that interests me a bunch, I'd be willing to help with that one. Try and, you know, match up presenters to topics and that kind of thing. There's going to be some logistics involved in this, and I don't mind doing them, and I don't mind doing extra work over the next couple months to get it working. What I consider better, more beneficial to stroke survivors is my definition of better, always. So, so we don't need to. I think we're all kind of in agreement on that, and I'll try. What I need to do is establish like a group with Trish and Joe and Dennis and me,
Yeah.
and a messenger group, so I can send out some stuff to everybody, and we can start organizing this.
Absolutely.
Pardon?
Another idea. I was thinking another idea. Like where I went to therapy at, I told her about the group and how you're having stroke meetings on Tuesday and blah blah blah. And what if I would go in there every Tuesday or something and have her have, if I could establish something with her there to have all the stroke patients there, get on the Zoom meeting on Tuesday. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, or just her and one, or if other people were interested. Or we get, maybe you could host her on a presentation that you're interested in, that she's an expert on, and she can bring in somebody maybe to work with, or with experience, and then you could also promote it to the other people in therapy that, you know,
Yeah.
our good friend Jane, the therapist, is going to be, you know, in this meeting talking about this. If you're interested, then you can join too. There's nothing, these meetings are, I use the same meeting code and the same password. They're totally open to anybody. You don't have to be part of the group. This could get passed on way beyond any of the Facebook Stroke Buddies or any of the other Facebook groups to, and that's my idea. The only risk in having it out there public is, you know, some idiot could come crash our meeting, but so far it hadn't happened, and I guess we'll figure out how to deal with it if it ever does. But I think there's a benefit in having the same codes and everything, and the same time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and having it be open. And, you know, I mean, we all met each other through the Facebook groups, but, you know, Trish, if it, you know, how do we build that platform for 6 million people? Well, first of all, you have to build it online, but then you also have to share it through things like, you know, come to the Zoom meeting, and then you'll find out about this platform, and, you know, taking it, disseminating it in places way beyond Facebook, like into physical therapy, other types of organizations. There are a lot of possibilities. So we've got a few more minutes. Dennis, you feel like talking a little bit about mentoring?
Well,
I,
yeah,
I mean,
I'll throw it out there. You know, as part of the Stroke Buddies site, there's that whole mentoring program. And again, I don't know how many of you have gotten involved in that, but I've gotten involved to the point that I have two mentors, two mentorees, I guess, I don't know what you call them, two people I'm mentoring, and I have somebody that's mentoring me. And there's certain features about that program I really like. I like the prompts that come once a week that says, have you checked in with so and so, and where are you on your action planning, so on and so on. You know, I love those prompts. But there's been some challenges that I've run into, maybe some of you have run into also. But I love to see us be able to make that program more robust and more sustainable. And I don't have any answers to how that happens, but I wanted to throw it all out there to see if you guys have any experiences with it or any thoughts on how we could make it more sustainable and more robust.
well, I got involved with it when it first came out. I guess it was about 2 years ago. I didn't have much success with it. People were confused as to how to pick a mentor. I finally looked for a couple people. I finally went in and looked for mentorees or whatever people wanted to be mentored, and I'd look and see what they wanted to be mentored on, and if it was something that I was knowledgeable about, I actually sent them a request instead of them requesting me. That didn't work very well. I loved all the prompts and everything too, Dennis. But what ended up happening with me was I would do my end and people would disappear on the other end. Maybe it was because I initiated it because they weren't initiating it. But you know, the other thing isn't what we're doing right here, right now, a mentoring program of sorts,
Of course,
and
I
um,
want to be like Joe when I grow up.
you want to be like Joe.
Yeah,
Which one?
Joe in Chicago.
Okay, thank you.
Well, um, I've I end up mentoring people. I was thinking about it after we talked last night, Dennis, and I was thinking, you know, well, that program hasn't been all that successful for me. Maybe I should try it again. Um, I didn't. I did it through Young Stroke Survivors Support Group. I haven't enabled it in Stroke Buddies because I didn't find it worked in the other group, and I didn't want to confuse people. Maybe I'll revisit that and see if I can still enable it in some way. I don't. Facebook hasn't offered it to me in a while. I'm sure if I look, I could figure it out. I end up with a lot of, because I answer a lot of questions, people end up asking me a lot of questions. And once I answer lots of questions for people, other people say, well, um, I could ask them a question. So I get all these Facebook Messenger messages, you know, from people I've never heard of before asking me questions. And that's not going to happen with other people because they're not as active as I am. But I was thinking about this whole mentoring thing, and I realized I've got a guy in Malawi, Africa, who checks in a couple times a week. Got a guy in India, and I got two women in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And probably I can think of a few more. I didn't look at my messenger list. The coolest thing about the two women in Tulsa is I realized that they were both in Tulsa, and I put them together, and they both have aphasia. They both had cerebellum or brainstem type stroke, so they have similar issues. And they are calling each other up and practicing their language skills on each other every day now. And
Very cool.
that warms my heart to, I can't even describe um, the satisfaction I get in just, I mean, it's just as simple as, well, Brooks in Tulsa, Stormy's in Tulsa. I put them together before I even knew that they had the same type of strokes. I was worried about their age because they have about 20 years difference between them. It didn't seem to make a difference. I've tried to put other people together, and sometimes it sticks, sometimes it doesn't. It's kind of like throwing spaghetti against the wall, I think. Um, I would encourage anybody who gets asked to mentor or gets asked questions. I know, Trish, you were talking about having your own Zoom meetings or starting a group, or you wanted to work your way towards being a, what I call pay it forward person. So there are things that you can do simply, you know, sometimes I put, I'll answer a question. I say, if you have any more questions, send me a message in Messenger. Well, if you start doing that, they'll start, if you build it, they will come. There are a lot of people out there, and all of them, we all benefit from each other. We all benefit from help, no matter how far out you are. I learn stuff every day, and I'm 13 years out, and I kind of do this for a living. So
I've enjoyed tremendously my mentoring with stroke survivors' families and caregivers, because as a family member or a caregiver, you're standing on the outside and you can't figure out what the heck's going on with this person.
Right.
What is going on? I mean, it's when you think about strokes, it seems so simple, but the complexity of it is just overwhelming. And a caregiver will walk into the room one day and the person will be grumpy as can be, and the next day might be as happy as can be. And trying to walk them through that and telling them that, often I say, hey, they're angry, they're mad, they're upset. Obviously, they're going to take it out on somebody. They're going to take it out on somebody they love the most. But just being able to talk to somebody that's like, what's going on with this person I used to love? Now they're not the same person.
Right.
That's the most important,
Ralph,
most valuable
if I
thing.
may, I don't have an answer to it, but Joe brings up a good point. That's a whole population that if we could find a way to touch caregivers. I mean, I know my primary caregiver is my fiance, and she's at wit's end most days and has no one else to talk to because no one understands. So if there was a way to get caregivers together, so they could network too.
Well,
there are a couple of caregiver groups. One of them is for women, female spouses of male stroke survivors, and they don't allow men in there. That's kind of interesting. It's one of the better groups, though, from what I understand. One of my local stroke survivors' wife was a member of it, and so I can refer people to it, although I can't be a member of it.
What is the name of that group, Ralph?
I'll have to go to her. It's something like, wives of stroke survivors or something, but that's not it. You could try typing that into Facebook. I can go to Diane's messages to me and dig it out for you. And Joe, I'll try and remember to dig out those eye exercises for you. But this is a whole nother thing because, they also don't get any training. When I came up with my idea to make the manual and put it on DVD, I realized two things. I wanted it to mostly be exercises for me. And then I realized that if I was having a pity party, I wouldn't watch that section. So you had to have a whole section on attitude to bring the stroke survivors up to where they realized they had to take ownership of their recovery, work hard, and go to the exercise section. And the other thing I thought about is that the caregivers are really a forgotten audience here. I was planning on doing something on caregivers. For example, I got released from the rehab hospital, and my wife got exactly 15 minutes worth of instruction. And it was on how to, and it was standard. It was how to help me get it up and down off the toilet. Well, I was doing sit-to-stands by the time I left the place. So it was kind of irrelevant to me. They sent us home and they didn't know how to take a shower. Didn't have a shower chair. had to go out and find out, oh, you need a shower chair, and go out and get one. I mean, there's just so much. I love the line. Some friends of mine, a friend of mine who is the #1 actor in Charlotte, um, had a stroke, terrible stroke, aphasia. Yeah, can't talk and you're an actor. That'll end your career, huh? Carl McIntyre. Anyway, a group of about 146 people volunteered. They made a movie called Aphasia, the movie. Hope is a 4-letter word. And there's a line in there that's just perfect for this, and it says, what happens to one happens to two. So there's that other person, Joe, like you were talking about, who's sitting there trying to figure out what's going on with their loved one. And that could be everything from a showered chair to like, why are they so moody? Or, you know, so I think what you're doing is great. And I've always thought it was a part of the big platform, if you will. And that could also be, if you're willing to do more than ants, that could be your second meeting. Try and find a couple of caregivers who have been successful. I might be able to help you with that. And maybe a struggling caregiver, and invite them all to the meeting and talk about caregiving.
Yeah, I like that.
You
And
like that? You're signing Joe up for it?
No, I would love to do a meeting. I mean, just tell me when you want me to do it.
Yeah. No, I think you would.
And I'd like to do it on, I think to start off with, I'd like to do it on ants.
Yeah, well, because you have some of the material already, and it's a good topic.
Yeah, so next week after, when do you want it done?
Okay.
well, you're going to have a separate meeting, right, Ralph, with the 4 of us?
Yeah. And if Lauren wants to join, fine. If not, I can coordinate your meeting with you, Lauren, on the side. And I know you got like a job and a half there at Med Rhythms, because you're texting me at 10 o'clock at night, and I'm telling you, clock out. Worry about me in the morning.
Sounds good.
First thing to do is I'll establish like a group messenger, so each of us can send things, and it'll go to everybody who's involved. And if we get anybody else who wants to help with these programs, then we can always add them.
Okay.
So that's our that'd be the first step, and then through that group through that group chat we could find out what's a time that works for everybody to have that little meeting. I don't know that we need to do that in front of everybody. It's also been an hour. One of the other things that I'd like to do would be to kind of wrap these up and have them, not go forever, and stick to the subject. So we've, talked for 15 minutes pretty much on subject, with an organized meeting. And so maybe
Yeah, good job, Ralph. I have one question for you
Sure.
that I picked up and I wasn't aware of on Mentor program.
Yeah.
That's only hosted on young stroke survivors?
It's on, are you a member of that group?
I am.
Okay. Well, that's where I became aware of it first. The group owner, Scott, put it in place, and I thought, as he never is in the group, I moderate it for him. And I thought, as moderator, I ought to know about it and I ought to participate in it, and that's why I tried. And at that point, I decided not to offer it in Stroke Buddies, but maybe with your experience and my experience and knowing a little bit more, maybe what we could do would be see if Facebook still offers it, because see, they had all those messages like, have you checked in with so-and-so this week? And it's time to, those were good things.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, they work as long as the people that you send them to cooperate on the other end. So maybe with some management, we could, and knowing some of the pitfalls, maybe we could make it work better. I'll add that to my list.
Yeah, and think about, is there a way we could kind of clear some of the riffraff that you and I have experienced, find me a wife in America, or teach me
Yeah,
how to
one was
hack?
yesterday.
I hear Americans are good hackers. Teach me how to hack. If there's a way to kind of clear some of that riffraff out of there, that would be beneficial.
Well, the guy from Ethiopia who wanted me to find him an American wife yesterday, I checked, he wasn't a member of the group. So some of that's just Facebook bombing, and I don't know that you can do that much about it. And one thing that I try and do to minimize the spam is I have to let people in. And if you join Facebook today and you have one friend and you're not a member of any groups and you don't have a picture, and I go to your profile and there's nothing there, I don't let you in because you're likely, some kind of spammer. So
Okay.
the best thing that you can do, and I don't see other group owners doing this. I've tried to train some of them into some of the things that you look for. How about like guys with female pictures? Send him a friend request. When I look at the profile and I say, they don't even know what sex they are, you can't join. I mean, there are a number of things I've tried to train other people, but they're busy or it falls on deaf ears. But I try and keep those people out of both Young Stroke and Strokes and Stroke Buddies. Young Stroke actually has a series of 4 questions that you have to answer. And don't tell anybody, but I actually let people in who don't answer them because I see they got a common friend, that they're friends with Trish. And then I look at their profile and I see, them sitting in a wheelchair or something. I go, well, I'm not going to be a jerk about this and not let them in because they missed the questions. Maybe they have cognitive issues or whatever. I also look, and when the people say yes, yes, yes to all 3 questions, are you a stroke survivor? Are you a caregiver? Are you a service provider? Or sometimes I get smiley faces on all 3. Those people are usually spammers. They're trying to answer the question and not answer the question. So keeping them out is one good way to reduce that. But like I said, I checked on this guy from Ethiopia who wanted a wife, and I couldn't find any connection to him as to why he actually, there was some stroke stuff, but I couldn't trace him back to any groups. So he just, at some point saw my name, sent me a stroke question, and then later asked me to get him a wife. That's the second wife request I've had. I don't see myself as a matchmaker. Yeah, just so you want to hire as a matchmaker, somebody who hasn't been on a date in 43 years. Anyway, with that, let's close this out, and I would like to invite anybody who's listening on YouTube to come join us in person, or if you have issues that you'd like to be see discussed, go to Stroke Buddies and see if you can find the post, or just start a post on how about discussing this. The group, the post on these meetings is pinned to the top as an announcement, so you could always put it there. And Lauren, I'll remember, in addition to Joe's eye thing and starting the little group chat, I'll remember to send you stuff too. So,
Thank you, Ralph.
Thank
That
you.
went very well.